This is the Live Well and Thrive podcast, hosted by Torchia, health and wellness expert. It's time to shape up, America.
Hi, it's Mike Torchia, and welcome to Live Well and Thrive. I got this incredible guest. I've been a big fan of his from Mayans. His name is Frankie Loyal. He played Hank on the Mayans, and as you know, it was a hit show. I wish it would get renewed because I looked forward to watching it every time it was on, every week. I followed his career. So I want to introduce Frankie, and I want to hear how he got started in the business. You know, was it something you thought of when you were a kid, or how'd you get into it?
Well, thanks for having me, number one. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the kind words. I was really into it since I was a kid, music and acting. You know, I did do some plays when I was a kid, but it was short-lived, but it wasn't until I got sent. It was like a detention for disciplinary action in high school. They sent me to a drama class, and I think the seed was planted there, and once again, that kind of fell off and caught up with me in my 20s, and then I went for it. I think I was about 25, 26.
Wow.
So I stuck with it ever since, you know, thick and thin, hills, valleys, dead spells, the whole deal.
When you got the role of Hank, was it like an open call, or did you have an agent say, hey, I got a role that's perfect for you, or did they reach out to you and say they'd like for you to read?
I did something you never do. I did audition for a role on Sons for a co-star, and I was bummed I didn't get it like anyone when they don't get the role, but that guy got taken out by Jax Teller. So if that had happened, it would have fit. It would have been great at the time, but I never would have had a chance to audition for Hank because, you know,
you were killed.
I was already killed off. So I always wanted to work with Sutter, and I literally barged my way into casting to be seen before the show was actually officially announced. I just knew there was talk on the street, kind of, and I wanted it really bad. And thank God, Wendy O'Brien and Chris, her assistant, they welcomed me, and they didn't call the cops on me, and they forgave me for, you know. But I just
love
knew.
It, man.
It's almost like samurai shame. If I couldn't have ever landed a role on that, I would have had to fall on my sword. I would have been so bummed, you know. And I'm just glad that the character evolved the way it did, that I made it to the end. A lot of people think I died. From what I had heard, Bishop and I are doing life in a federal prison somewhere. That's all I heard about, you know, what was left of us, you know, so.
Well, you never know. They can do a continuation. They're good at doing that, right?
It would be like, The Odd Couple or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it really, your character, you really seem like that's you because, you know, the tattoos, the build, you know, you're a biker. I loved when you came in the studio with the helmet on. I was like, wow, it's part of my tribe. You know what I mean?
Well, I have to, you know, the thing that I think I had the advantage, and I feel like sometimes it was kind of used as a disadvantage at me, but I didn't take it personal. But there was a lot of people in clubs throughout that showed me a lot of grace, a lot of insight. I was able to have the privilege of having a couple sit-downs with the old-timers prior to the show. And I think it wasn't a hesitation, it was a choice. You know, whether you like it or not, you will always have to come into life with a sense of respect towards people, places, and things. And I wanted to approach Hank with nothing but the utmost respect for the MC world and the people I was portraying. Because when you sit down and get to know a lot of these men individually, you know that they have a patch, but you see the man behind the patch. And those were the stories that really kind of took me in, and they trusted me, and I felt very welcomed and embraced, and I wanted to honor that. So that was kind of a tough one to carry because I just never knew how they were going to play the character.
And how did they feel, the old-timers, when they saw your character? Did they get a chance to actually see you in action?
I've been very lucky. When I go to Sturgis, it's always at a gas station. You know, when we're doing the gas and go, always somebody will pull me aside and talk, and it's always nice to hear that for a long haul of it that they were very pleased. You know, it's almost that means more to me than as if somebody handed me an award or something. You know what I mean? Because I'm out there riding. Those are the people that I portrayed, and I just wanted to honor it. And I walked away feeling like I did, and I still do. So it was good. It was positive.
And then with the other actors, do you still communicate with them?
I mean, I was out with Emilio Rivera last night. We were at a friend's movie screening, and he's one of those people that I call him my brother. I could call him at 3 a.m. if I need to, and vice versa.
Wow.
He's got a wonderful family. He's one of those guys that, it's like we were talking about it last night. This is the last time I saw him was at Christmas. I have the best Christmas memories at his house because it just feels like home, you know, and it's almost like time never passes with people like him or Danny Pino. And, you know, I think when it came to the show, I learned very quickly on, as the path moved on with the progression of the show, was I know what real brotherhood is, and I know what made-for-TV brotherhood is. And I'll take the first any day.
Yeah, but I could just see the energy with all of it. You just clicked.
It worked.
You know, and that's what made it so real, so believable when you watch the series. And you really own that character, man.
Thank you.
You were that character. You know, and
it was hard to let him go. It was hard to put him in bed.
I was heartbroken when I heard they didn't renew it. I was like, damn.
But it's a cautionary tale. And I think as much as it would have been great to continue to go to work, you know, our president was a rat.
Yeah.
You don't snitch, you don't rat. And from the first episode on, we had 4 guys in the club that betrayed the club from the beginning. And all but one of them got out alive, as far as we know.
Yeah.
So it's almost like that's what happens.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes these are the consequences. And that's, I think, the reality of that truth made me go, okay, well, this is why this has to end. And I would rather see that end with the integrity of the storyline that Elgin had than have it be like the Rolling Stones' 800th final tour or reunion concert, or final concert. It's like, we don't need to beat it in the ground. It should probably end where it needs to. So.
Now, I know they're doing, we're talking about a reboot of Sons of Anarchy.
Right.
Do you think there'd ever be something for you there, or they couldn't do that?
I probably might not have been born or been a young buck. I don't know. That would always be an interesting story.
Yeah, I thought it'd be great, actually.
I mean,
you know, you always wanted to know Jack's father.
Right.
You know, and so I thought when they brought it up, boy, that'd be great if they do that.
And his character was strong in SOA. You know, he was this resonant force that was there, and just like when you know, Jax would read from his journals, and you would see, you know, hear his voice throughout the episodes, and the heartbreak and the disillusionment, and you know, this is what we started, and this is how it's ending, and this is what I fear for the future, and it's funny in some ways how history can repeat itself, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think the Jax Teller thing I liked his character a lot.
Yeah, I did.
I really did. Yeah. I liked the Otto character because a lot of people, you know, it's like I look at that character that Sutter played, and I mean, that guy died of a broken heart pretty much. Everything he had put in, you know, he died, you know, and probably hating what he loved the most. Yeah. And that's got to be heartbreaking. And bit off his own tongue. You know, it's...
Yeah, no, it was
the way he went down, it's hardcore.
That was an intense scene.
Right.
Wow.
And then the Opie character is always one of my favorites. Yeah. Ryan Hurst killed it on that.
Oh, he was amazing, man.
He's a cool guy.
I never met him. Ron Perlman's been on my show about 3 times already.
Right, I like him.
Ron's a character, man. We have a blast. We go out to eat a lot, and
nice.
he's solid.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I just loved, you know, when I first met him, we just hit it off. We just became brothers, and I talk to him almost every day now, you know. But I think it's because, you know, because I'm New York, I'm a biker too, you know, and I relate to you when you come in. So when you feel the same energy, you automatically get that bond, and automatically offer the respect, to people, you know. And there's something when I see another biker, when I'm riding, I acknowledge the other biker. I don't care if he's driving, you know, a rice rocket or what. It's okay.
2 wheels is 2 wheels. Yeah.
Exactly. I show respect. But it's so funny. I know all the cops in the area. And once in a while when I'm going a little too fast on Wilshire, they go, Mike.
Right.
While he has his radar gun. I built the West LA's gym.
Mm-hmm.
I went in there. I said, this is what you got for a gym? I took it all out. and I put all brand new equipment, $150,000 worth of equipment. I put surround sound. I put, the Wi-Fi in there. So when they had roll call, now I drive around my bike. I could push it a little bit.
Right.
They're like, if I go too fast, they go.
Right. Is it Beverly Hills PD?
No, West LA.
West LA.
No, but I do a lot for Beverly Hills too.
Right.
I do a lot of volunteer work, health and wellness for the
Right.
cops and the vets and so on.
Nice.
So this is part of what I'm about. I like to
Right.
give back, But no, I always loved your character on the show,
thanks.
and I said, gee, I'd love to know how you got into the business, and and what do you plan to do now? Is there anything coming up we can talk
I
about?
just had a movie just released last week. They had a number of screenings down at the $1 Million Theater down in downtown LA.
Yeah.
It's like the oldest theater in LA. It's beautiful. It's like a 2,000-seater, and the ceilings are... So I did a movie called Die Like a Man, and it sounds like an action thriller, but it's not. It's actually a film and a story about a young man who's 17, and he's at the four corners of West LA, Culver City, Santa Monica, and Venice, where there was a lot of turbulence there with the gangs. And it was another thing that was happening when LA was happening, when there was a lot of heat. And he's just trying to find his lot in life. And he's being told what a man is, what a man does, what a man doesn't do. And he's just getting hit from all directions. And he's given some pressure to handle things. And, it's his story. And I play his mother's boyfriend. And we have kind of a strained, turbulent relationship. And Eric Nazarian, the director-writer who did that, was really hands-on and very thorough in his story and the research. So when I worked with him, it was like, this guy reminded me of Elgin James from Mayans.
He's amazing, man.
Just super trustworthy, a person of his word. So the project, he shot it in almost 14 days, nonstop.
Wow.
And the cast they were great. They were great people. And it was kind of a blur the way I did the filming process with them until I saw the film. But it was a really good movie. It's out on Amazon and was it Apple TV right now? Die Like a Man. It just was released on Friday.
I'll watch it tonight. I can't wait.
Please do.
That's
Let me
awesome.
know.
Yeah.
We're pretty proud of it.
I'll click that. I love it. Now listen, it all adds up. But you know what? Whether it's the theaters or streaming platforms, more people watch it. I've
Right.
spoken to Sly Stallone's a dear friend of his brother Frankie's a friend of mine.
Right.
Because Mike, more people watching me on Tulsa King on TV than any movies I did in my whole life.
Right.
Right. So it gets into all those homes, all those people watching. So you never know. I mean, I talked to a lot of producers. They'll watch a movie or show and they actually say, I got to call their agent. They're amazing.
Right.
So I know that how it works.
Right.
Just word of mouth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was funny because when we were at the after party last night, Emilio and his wife, we were talking about Rocky III. Because Dolph Lundgren was there last night. So it was funny because I guess, Emilio's wife, she's like, I had a crush on him. And Emilio was like, oh, really? She's like, I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone. But we were talking about, the Stallone legacy. And in fact, was it Rocky, the one with Tommy Gunn, that was Rocky 4 or Rocky 5? Rocky 4, I believe.
I think it's 4.
When I was in an acting class, one of the first monologues I had to do, I did a monologue from Rocky 4 when he goes to the boxing gym after Mickey died, and it's all when he goes back home, when he's done that full circle of his bitter homecoming and the whole monologue of Mickey talking about life, and when people die we lose everything, and what am I living around here for? But he's telling Rocky that he'll stick around and stay alive as long as he's got him, and that was just so compelling.
Yeah, it's powerful, yeah.
So that was one of the first monologues for a class I learned. And when I still see it, I get choked up. Like I get choked up talking about it now because it was so heavy.
Now, Sly is brilliant.
Yes.
He wrote Rocky, the first Rocky,
right,
in 20 days. I mean, he's got all these scripts. He has a script he wrote about Edgar Allan Poe. Wow. And he shared all these details. I didn't even know about Edgar Allan Poe, except for he's just a poet. That guy had a crazy life.
Yes.
And so when I'd go to his house, when he lived here in Bel Air, the pieces of art. He's an amazing artist.
Yeah.
And what he'll do is he'll paint on these like burlap bags, and then they'll put it on, so it's like this beautiful canvas. So that you look at the texture of the painting. So it's not just the painting,
Right.
but the texture of the material he's painting on. It's just incredible, the detail. He's so detail oriented, but he's so articulate. He talks about politics, talks about everything in
Right.
general. But he's just unstoppable. He got at a point where he was at a very low. I mean, he had Vin Diesel come over when he was at his lowest, and Vin said, "Yeah, maybe I'll put you in one of my movies, whatever." Never did it, and he just said, "I had enough." He did more writing, came back, and
Right.
now he's got the #1 show on Paramount, Tulsa King, and
Right.
and he's loving it. They're shooting it down in Atlanta. And
I mean, but the thing about him that's also extraordinary that I like is you always hear about people's successes, but when he was doing Rocky, how he had to sell his dog and how he kept his turtles and just what he went through to kind of show everybody like this is worth doing. And people were probably slamming doors in his face left and right, and he still did it.
yeah.
And that's like a huge accomplishment. And that's the stuff like I like to pay attention to when I see people that are, storytelling, acting, music, whatever. Those are the stories that really like lock me in. So when you like that monologue, for instance, right? The one I talked about earlier, it's like, there's so much truth behind that. They're not just words. That's coming from somewhere. And that's the stuff that I like. It's kind of like if you look at somebody on the street and they're lying, you can read right between them.
Yeah.
I feel that way about stories sometimes or things on TV or movie. You know who's telling the truth. You know who's coming from that place that, it's their obligation as a storyteller to do so.
Yeah, but he's such an incredible writer.
Right.
And he writes from the soul.
Right.
And it was so fun. He loves posting now on Instagram and
Right.
different social media, which he never thought he would do. And he's giving life lessons.
Right.
And he even talks about one time, he said, I'd walk in the streets and I was like the biggest action star in the world. Now I know what it's like to be an invisible man. Some people don't even recognize me. They're like, whoa, he got old. So he has to accept now that he's aged.
Right.
He has aches and pains from all of that. He's got a lot, neck, back, you name it. A lot of injuries from all
Right.
the fight scenes. And in fact, Dolph Lundgren was the one that fractured his cervical part of his spine.
Right.
He hit him so hard that he had to get surgery. He had to put pins in his neck. And but they're close as friends.
Right.
But that happens,
It happens, yeah.
So, but when we would go out to eat, we used to go to Cafe Roma in Beverly Hills when that was there, and it used to be Sly, Frank, and I, and Dolph Lundgren would come, Arnold would come every Saturday, and then just other people from the Expendables movies, the Rock,
Right.
would come, and so people would walk by us and they were shocked to see us just sitting around eating Italian food and just talking about life.
Right.
And it was every Saturday. We did this for years. And I listened to their stories. And they were always beautiful. I hear all these Dolph stories. And then Chucky's Zito would be there and he shared his stories. And everybody was sharing.
Right.
While having good food and having a good time and the laughs, But Sly was always so brilliant. When he writes the script, like what he does with Tulsa King. He gets, Taylor Sheridan's lines, and then he does his magic, of course,
Right.
respectfully. But he knows what a mobster would be like. He becomes that character.
Right.
Like you became Hank.
Right.
Now, how did you get in? You look great, man. What do you do for your physique? Do you do a lot of weight training, calisthenics? What do you do? What's your
Well, it was
recipe?
crazy because first couple of seasons of Mayans, I actually gained weight to kind of have that more weathered,
Yeah.
look. It was really uncomfortable. Even and I still had a trainer, but with what I was wearing, it was just uncomfortable. And then I think by the third season, I was able to kind of back off on that a little bit. And then I kind of picked that routine of eating more and looking a little more tired. And I was a little sleep deprived the last season, definitely. I mean, I've always been a bigger guy, but it's kind of hard to tell under the clothes, of what we're wearing on the show. But I always had a trainer, always had to work out, and
That's
sometimes my hours would be at 2 a.m. And I'd have to go
Wow.
home and shower. And I rode to work every day, and so you'd have 40 miles, sometimes a 70 mile, depending if you're shooting out in Palmdale or wherever. So I had that right on top of it, and
So did you ever use your own bike, or you had to use the studio bike?
Never got to use my own bike.
Oh.
My friends that got to come on the show did. I was like, really? I was like, they pay you to do that. And, and the whole thing for me was the only reason I would have wanted it on the show is, and people who don't ride, and some of the production people didn't understand it, and I don't hold it against them, but, the wear and tear on a bike every day, especially back and forth, just that extra money would have just helped me with the maintenance. And because I swear it didn't matter what season it was, every final day of filming, something happened to my bike. Like one time I was riding out, we were in Lancaster, bike caught on fire. Another time I got, right before the end of season 5, I got clipped right when I pulled out of Hollywood, and I had to carry this heavy bag somehow on my shoulder and bike, dented my gas tank back home to switch out the other bike, make it work on time. So it was like always some kind of, So the wear and tear, it would have been nice to have the bike on the show. Just that little extra bread and butter.
So now, did you do a lot of riding in the movie, and the show, or did you not ride that much? It was just short? We
did, but nowhere near, how much I rode to get to work every day or back or in between. But it was, I had this beautiful road glide, and I swear to God, I just so wanted to take it. The last day out, I just wanted to ride out in the lot with it. I did.
Yeah.
But I think they knew that. They mysteriously hit it, took the battery out. Because I wouldn't have apologized for that. I wanted to ride that one to Sturgis. In my mind, I was like, I'm taking that to Sturgis this year, and didn't happen.
No. So now, do you have wife, kids? What's?
Never been married, no kids. I have, my youngest sister, Annie, I always call her like my bratty little sister. She's my best friend, and in a lot of ways, she's my older sister. She's very wise. She gave up being a lawyer because she felt lawyers could be corrupt, so she became a full-time teacher and mentors kids. Like her job, her and her husband, like nonstop. They're just always, they're those teachers that go beyond the extra mile of taking care of their students and making sure, they bring their work home like they're always worried about, where they're staying. Some of these kids, she's like, they live on hotel floors, and, like I worry about them at night, like what are they going to eat? And she's just that,
Says a lot about who she is.
She's amazing.
Teachers don't make a lot of money.
No, and she gave up being a lawyer in D.C. for this. And then she met my brother-in-law, who, he's this awesome guy, Mike Mondo, this cool Sicilian guy. And sometimes I joke that I like him better than her. But they have these two amazing kids, my godchildren, my niece and nephew, Aiden and McKenna. And, if I was a parent, I'd have proud moments with them. Aiden got 19 scholarships, put himself through this university at Santa Barbara. And then McKenna decided to go to Villanova over in, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
She did it on 13 or 14 scholarships. And even when I would come home to visit them, I would catch McKenna up in the floor at her grandma's house. Just they're humble, hardworking kids.
That's beautiful.
They raised them right. And
how old are the kids?
Aiden just turned 21 on Monday.
Oh, wow.
I can't believe it because they sent a photo where I had him like this. And then McKenna, she's 19, but, she's wise beyond her years. She's a firecracker. She wants to ride a chopper.
Did they watch you on Mayans?
They did, and, it's funny because, like McKenna, when I got the show, when the first got announced having the show, she goes, I'm so happy you're going to be on Mayans. I'm like, how did you know about that? Like, how'd you hear about that? And she goes, because Danny Pino's on that show. She had a crush on Danny Pino, the other actor. I was oh, thanks. Like, well, I'm glad to help, But they watched it, and, in a way, my biggest regret, and I can't imagine how a parent feels, but we were all committed to the show. And my godchildren grew up before I knew it. Like when the shows, when they had ended for the seasons, I was able to make graduations and, watch them walk, get their diplomas. But I missed out on so much because, I was working, which that was a commitment, and you do that and you sign on for it. But not having a wife or kids to come home to, I have my work. And, sometimes we have work, sometimes we don't. But the way I see it is, my work is my life, and it will always be with me as long as I take care of it. People will come and go. They'll die. They'll disappoint you. They'll betray you. And some people, move on, but my work has always been there. But And I think of the people in my life that I've gotten through my work, or that journey. It's been amazing. And like a couple nights ago, I was talking with my buddy Michael Sorvino, Paul Sorvino, Paulie.
Dear friend of mine, Paul. God bless his soul.
Right?
Mikey's a good kid.
Mikey's awesome. And so we were talking the other night, and I met him, and I always call him Mr. Paul, at a restaurant in Santa Monica one day. And I barely had any money to my name, but I wanted to buy Paul Sorvino dinner because I had so much respect for this man. And I told the waitress, don't tell where it came from. Just please. And I'm eating my dinner, and I barely had any money in my account. I mean, I was struggling, and I was working my butt off, and I was still broke. And he walks over to the table, and he goes, "Don't worry about it, kid. Shorty ratted you out. Nothing gets past me." And he sat with me, him and Michael, and we talked for a good amount of time. And he was probably one of the catalysts and the conduits for telling me, like, just stick with your work. Make it all about your work. You will have no idea where it'll take you if you hang in there. I'm rooting for you. And here's this guy that's, larger than life in so many ways, and took time to talk to me, and I never forgot that.
I gotta say, he was one very special human being. I met him through my tennis pro, and he said, I'm hitting with Paul Savino on Sunday. I go, he plays tennis? He goes, and he's damn good.
I bet, that swing.
Let me tell you something. So we started playing tennis every weekend. He was a fantastic tennis player. He does long arms and very powerful, and he barely moved. He was just so slick. He'd be looking down the line, and I think he's going to hit down line, and then he flips his wrist and hits it across the court over there.
Right.
He played games with me, and we go out to eat and we hang out. And then on Sundays, he used to cook. It was his night where he invite friends over.
Right.
He made the best marinara, the best meatballs, the lasagna. I mean, he loved to cook. And then he had that beautiful opera voice.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And I'll never forget I had dinner when the Palm was over in West Hollywood, the old one. And I had about 30 of my friends there. And so Paul goes, "I got a gift for you." I said, "Man, you don't have to bring me." No. So he comes. And he said, I need a good bottle of wine. I said, "Okay, I got the best bottle of wine you can get." A few sips, it's that. And then he sang the song from Pagliacci.
Not familiar.
Oh, it's a beautiful, a robust song. The girls were in tears. And he sang, and he would go up to everybody and sing to them. He says, "Happy birthday, that was your gift." He said, "Normally he would have paid me $50,000.
Right.
I said, "The wine's on me, the dinner's on me, Paul, don't worry." And we laughed. But he was just a loving, giving guy. He would give complete strangers advice when they'd come up.
Yeah.
He'd always take time to sign something and be courteous. So you had a great mentor, man.
I remember that, and I don't forget that, and it's always nice. One of the nicest things that was ever said to me was when the show ended. Michael called me, and we have weird hours because he's over on the East Coast. And he said, I will say this, that if my father saw your work, he'd been very proud of you. It made him very proud. Man, I was just like, you know what I mean? There's just something just like, how do I respond to that?
You know what? I brought up Catholic, but I know Paul's listening to us.
I hope so.
Wherever he is, brother,
Thank you, Mr. Sorvino. Like, seriously, like, it was huge because, and it says a lot about him as a man. Like, when we talked, he's like, "Why'd you buy me dinner? Just tell me the truth." I said, "Well, I heard this thing about you." He goes, "Oh, you heard this thing about me?" And I said, "I don't know if it's true or not, but I like it." He goes, "Well, tell me. Enlighten me." And I said, "Well, sometimes when I'm struggling, my mom will always bring you up." And he's like, "Your mom?" And I said, "She tells me about this Reader's Digest story about you, how, when you were trying to break into the business, you had little success, and your wife told you at the time you better get with it. You got another kid on the way, and this hobby of yours isn't going to fly." So he was selling vacuum cleaners door to door, if I recall, and as the story says, and he was doing it, and then one day there was a cattle call in New York for an audition, and he's probably like, "My wife's going to kill me," but he went and did it. and he booked the role. And here we are. And my mom said, what do you think would happen if Paul Sorvino had given up? Nobody would have ever heard of him. You would have never seen him. And we were always a fan of him prior to that.
Yeah.
So when I told the story, he looked at me and goes, and he looked at Michael. Michael said, it's a true story. My mom was pregnant with me when that happened.
Wow.
So the validity was there. The beauty of the truth of the story was there. And, it was great, and he had this smile on his face.
Oh, he had that bright smile.
And that handshake. I mean, I got big hands.
Oh,
but, man, like they're huge.
It's like baseball mitts, right?
And it was nice because, I tried to reach out to him, when the show came out. And after one of these Comic-Cons we did, when we were walking up the stage, the crowd was going crazy. It was like a rock concert. And I remember thinking in that moment, I said, he was right. Like, I never would have imagined a life like this. It's insane. And I wanted to reach out to him again, and I found out he had passed away a couple of days before.
Yeah.
And then, Michael and I got back in contact and stayed in contact ever since. But, yeah, I think about him, because he inspired me in the right way. And it always amazes me when you have people like that in a business that are seen as larger than life, but they're just humble, good people. I mean, there's no need to be a jerk. There's enough of them around. I don't want to work with them.
Exactly. I remember in Goodfellas, I mean, he was incredible.
Yeah.
His performance in that. And you'll love this little story. So, you remember in the scene when they're all in jail, and Paul's slicing the garlic with the razor blade.
Yes.
So it melts into the oil so it doesn't burn and get bitter.
Right.
So one night we were at his house. A Sunday night, we're making Sunday dinner. And he took the garlic out, he peeled it, and then he had his razor blade. Oh, I said, is that what you got when you did the movie? He goes, what do you mean got? Do you know that whole thing wasn't scripted? He just said, go in there, this is what you have to show. He goes, that's what I learned from my grandmother.
Wow.
So when I did the sauce and I did that, that's all ad lib. Wow. That's my recipe.
Nice.
And I was like, wow. So since that day, years ago, when I make my sauce, I have a razor blade like he has, and I slice it thin. So when I heat up the oil, the olive oil, the slices of garlic melts into the oil. Because he taught me that if it gets too dark, even dark brown, the sauce becomes bitter.
Right, because the shell's a lot dense on the outside.
Yeah. So he said, slice it thin and let it absorb into the oil. And to this day, I always make my sauce with the garlic that way.
Nice.
He just had a way about him. The way he describes things was so beautiful.
I like that scene. I used to cook. I was cooking almost 3 kitchens at once, trying to stay afloat here while I was trying to be an actor.
Wow, man, you really worked your ass off.
I did. I tell you, I miss the kitchen every day.
Yeah. Well, you're going to love this. So I'm doing a spin-off show called Recipe for Health, where guests are going to come in, we're going to cook.
Oh, nice.
We're going to set up a killer kitchen. So if you want, maybe we could think of something you like to eat, something your family recipe.
Yes.
And we're going to have some fun. I'm going to invite people to come. Sly's going to come. He's going to cook his favorite power breakfast.
Right.
And I have all these people that want to come on and do the thing. So I want you to come back when we do that.
Yeah.
We'll have fun in the kitchen, man.
Love it. No, my first chef, I have him tattooed right here.
Wow.
Right? My first hero.
So what's your favorite dishes? What do you like the best?
When I was living in San Francisco, I worked at this restaurant, this hotel in Union Square, and it was a Northern Italian style cooking was one of my favorites. It seemed to match the San Francisco climate. The food was always very nurturing, with the risottos and just like a lot of the sauces that we had in the pasta, they just fit, they always matched the cold. But it was also the way that the meats were grilled or roasted. It was just, everything was top notch. And I really started falling in love with sun-dried tomatoes more because I'm not.
Oh, I love it.
And it was just the different flavors. You have rich, but at the same time you've got these lean, healthy, grilled, roasted proteins. And I liked that a lot. I love pastas. Like
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think whatever I'm feeling at the moment. But there's times I'll literally, or a big fillet of, or a big ribeye, and I'll marinate it for, and finish it off and I'll just eat that with no sides or something, just that, and just savoring.
Brother, I'm on the same page. Last night I had a 2-pound porterhouse. I loved it.
Right.
Oh, I just ate that up. My friend Sean Kanan has this hot sauce, but it's not real hot. It adds more flavor. He was Michael Barnes in Karate Kid 3. He was in Cobra Kai.
Right.
And he has this, like, Cobra Venom, he calls it. I had that big, juicy, rare porterhouse. I grilled outside of my grill. I just put some of that hot sauce. That's all I wanted to eat. I didn't care about a potato, rice, vegetable. I just wanted that big, juicy steak.
That's satisfactory.
Right.
Like, yeah.
And it's so funny. So there's a gentleman named Texas Slim.
Mm-hmm.
He is my sponsor for my show. And I really checked out his beef. He said, listen, I formed the Beef Initiative. It's 200 of the largest cattle ranchers in Texas and Montana.
Right.
There's no prime, there's no choice. My steak is here. They're here.
Really?
It's the healthiest steak on the planet. So he sends me this care package, like a 72-ounce tomahawk steak and some really big, like 48-ounce porterhouses, right? I got to say, I could have cut the beef with a butter knife.
Really?
It was so tender. But the thing is, the cattle are not like fed any chemicals or pesticides or hormones, and they're grazing on grass that has no pesticides, nothing non-GMO, right? So, and they get exercise, so they're healthy. The other, you explained to me, the cattle are in stalls.
Right.
They're just getting fat and bloated and miserable and fed grains that are genetically modified, and they're full of hormones, right, and pesticides. So the meat you get in other places, unless they have really strict guidelines, is crap.
So there's no choice, select, grade, prime. He's above.
It's here. So he's my sponsor. So I want to get you some steaks. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to get you a big porterhouse, tomahawk. When you grill it up, you're going to think of Texas Slim Cuts, because I say it's amazing. So what we're doing now is with my website, operationfitness.com, you can go on there, and he'll deliver from farm to your table. So with dry ice, we send it to you, we ship it immediately to your home. Wow. And guess what? It's so affordable. It's cheaper than going to Bristol Farms or Whole Foods, and it gets delivered to your house. So we're putting that together, and we're going to do 100% beef protein. We're going to be doing really delicious beef jerky, different spices and flavors, and we're going to do these desiccated liver tablets at high protein, help detoxify the body. But my show's all about healthy living, quality foods, you know. Right. You loving steak, I got to get you some of those steaks. It'll blow your mind, man. I was looking. I have 2 pit bulls. They were drooling.
Really?
They would. Well, see, I cook for my dogs.
Right.
See, I don't give them something out of a can or a bag. Right. I give them eggs in the morning. I eat fruit and oatmeal. They eat it too. Lunch today, I had a big piece of filet salmon and some rice and some vegetables. And tonight, I'll probably do another porterhouse, right? But they eat like I eat. And when you look at my pit bulls, they're 85 pounds each. They're brother and sister.
You curl them and...
Oh, they look like... Well, I go down the street. I walk with my dogs. People will run across... They pick up the dog and run on the other side of the road because they see me with these 2. And my female is alpha.
Oh.
Anybody comes to my house, you have to slowly... Don't raise your hands. Don't talk loud. I have to introduce you because otherwise she's like this in front of you. She's like my bodyguard. Right. But they're both rescues.
That's beautiful.
You know, but they're beautiful souls. But when they get to know you, they'll lean on you. You know. Do you have dogs?
No, I've got pet squirrels and I have a murder of crows.
No shit.
Yeah.
Hey, the squirrels, the baby squirrels.
Yeah, they're always the runts. I see the runts.
They come right over. But I had to be careful. One time, I went like this with the food. He bit my finger by mistake. I said, no, baby, it's okay. So I make sure it's down like this.
Right.
But they are so adorable.
They're cool. And the crows, that was a process.
Are every morning I hear them.
It was a process. I had to earn their trust because they're not pets. They're very smart. But if you can earn a bit of their trust, it's like an accomplishment. Yeah. And, it's just... And I like it sometimes when I'm coming home. Sometimes they'll fly right above me. And and it's this really cool thing. I live when it happens. I'm just like, because sometimes I feel like... beautiful creatures like that, I relate to them more than I would most people. Because they'll take you for what you are. They'll like you or they won't.
I grew up on a farm. I like animals more than people. I gotta say,
Yeah.
because they're my family.
Yeah.
And like every morning I get up, before I eat anything, I go barefoot, my shorts on, no shirt. I do what we call earthing.
Right.
And bare feet on the grass. I look up into the sky, sort of angled towards the sun, but not looking at the sun. And it opens up everything, the body chemistry. And then there's these waves. They're like microwaves, magnetic waves,
Right.
that reset your body, stimulate collagen production and alkaline production.
Right.
So I wake up, and guess what I'm hearing? The crows, the sparrows, the squirrels, my dogs running around, the raccoons.
Yeah.
And it's so healing.
It is, and you realize that, we're mere mortals, and they're running the show more than we think. And I think, like, when I ride the sturgeons too, and you see they're like antelope with the big, huge horns that could plow into you, or the bison, or even the deer. We ran into so many deer this time, but it's cool. Like and
the coyotes, you must see a lot of coyotes, right?
Yeah, I have this one coyote I see every night I ride home, and one time when it was strange because I was pulling in, I called my friend right after. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I was like, he ran up alongside the bike. He wasn't attacking the bike. He had no fear. And then I'll see him on occasions. And another time there was this incline, and I don't know how, it just ran so fast and just gracefully hit the incline and kept going. And I was like, never seen a coyote do that. Wolves, yeah, I've got to go to a wolf sanctuary once, and that was amazing. But the coyotes were actually, I was telling my friend,
they're beautiful.
I give him a lot more credit than I did. And, like I said, the one that I see him a couple nights a week, I think. Yeah.
Well, the Tippy, you remember Tippy Hendren?
Yes.
The birds, whatever. So she has a compound up north with lions and tigers and ligers.
Wow.
And there's about 80 cats.
Wow.
And the fence is like 11 feet high. So I did a tour of the place. She was showing me around, and
right.
magnificent. So then I saw this guy, and he was carrying a bucket, and one arm was half gone. I said, what happened to him? Well, I warned him, but we have this little short stick, the stick that he has on his waist there. Mm-hmm. You prod them into the ribs if they get out of line.
Right.
Because that's how we train them when they're young. But the problem was there was a female tiger that was pregnant. So he hit her.
Ooh.
And she said he ate his arm. And I said, how long has he been working? He said, well, that happened 5 years ago. I said, he's still working here? She goes, yeah, he didn't care. He said he loves them. But each cat eats 20 pounds of ground meat a day.
Yeah.
But I got to say, they were the most magnificent animals. And it started getting late, and they started doing like this howl thing, and the sun was kind of going away. And I said, Tippy, it's getting kind of spooky. She goes, yeah, it's not a good time. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, those cats can hop over in a heartbeat. I said, Tippy, I got to go.
Yeah.
And she lives in a trailer on the property with all these cats, but they love her. Oh,
right.
You got to see when she's by the fence, they like get on their back and go like this in front of her. You got to go.
They know.
Next time I go, I'll invite you.
I would
take
love
the bikes
to.
up there and go.
I'll totally
Let me tell you
ride up
something.
there.
80
Yeah.
lions and tigers, and they have the ligers, which is
Right.
Magnificent. So it's a lion that has stripes like a tiger. Big head. Most magnificent animals in the world.
Wow, and you have to submit to them, right, when you're near them.
Yeah. No, they'll pick up.
Yeah.
Don't be scared, because what happens, she explained to me, they smell the scent.
Yeah.
If you're scared, that means they think it's danger.
Right.
So relax. Breathe slower.
Right.
It's a process. You know?
Right. I can only imagine. I mean, the closest I ever came was a serval.
Ah.
And it was crazy because she jumped right behind me, and they're like, just be cool. So I did. And my dad had just died. So I was in a headspace, And then they had another photo where it was right here, and it was just sniffing me out. And then in the third photo and a video they have, the serval was at my feet, and it was nudging my feet with his head, almost like it picked up on what was going on. And that was a heavy moment. I was like, wow, they really do pick up more than, and this, met this creature,
Magnificent
it was
creature.
heavy.
Man. Wow.
It was heavy, It
very cool.
It instead of and I did submit, but it completely was comforting and just nurturing, and when I see the video, sometimes I'm like, wow, like that's heavy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I would love to. I'd be,
Yeah, no, we'll go. You'll blow your mind when you see this. It's a whole compound.
right.
It's all you have is these lion, tigers, and it's all grass and mountains in the background. And there's a train that goes by, and you can hear the train with the.
Nice.
the
That's my favorite sound at night.
Oh,
I get
it's,
to hear
it's
it. It's a
soothing,
train.
right? For sure. Well, listen, Frankie, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And I can't wait to see your new movie.
Thank you.
And you said it's on Apple TV,
And
Amazon.
Prime too. I just found out. Die Like a Man.
Die Like a Man.
Eric Nazarian. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you for watching the show. Please, if you have anybody you care about, share this episode. It's so inspirational to learn about Frankie's journey and what it was like to be on the set of this incredible hit show and the brotherhood that he created and all the wonderful stories with Paul Savino and so on. And please remember, I need you to subscribe. That's what helps me bring this show to you. You subscribing and sharing these episodes grows my audience, which allows me to make the show. And a special thanks to Texas Slim Cuts for being our sponsor. Thanks for watching.